it's time for another latte with Leanne. Cheers. So today I have Erin Beranek with the Morgan Law Group, and we're going to talk about a combination of probate and trusts. And I think that we'll start with the probate issues. That way we can hit home on the value of a trust.
Absolutely. So maybe you've experienced a death in the family, or you know somebody that has, and somebody passed away and they do not have a trust in place. And you're wondering, how am I supposed to get this piece of property now transferred into my name? And unfortunately, if you are finding yourself in that situation, the only way to get that property transferred into your name is to go through the probate court. Now, the probate court, in order to initiate the proceeding, you do have to file a probate petition, and that gets the process started. Once the process is started, the court will appoint an executor, and that executor will be the person that will handle the estate from the start to the finish.
Now, sometimes the executor is actually in the will, right?
Yes.
Because just because you have a will doesn't mean you're protected. You have to have the trust, but we'll get into that, to be protected.
Yes, and that's a very excellent point, because you are correct. A will does not protect against probate. So the house would still have to go through probate even if your loved one had a will. And if the executor is appointed in the will, then that person would take over and act as executor. If there is no will, then the court will appoint the executor. Now, once you begin the probate process, it is tedious. We say on average the probates take between 12 to 18 months. And I will say that's sometimes generous. Oftentimes our office even has probates that are in probate for 3 years or plus, depending on so many different circumstances. The main part about probate is figuring out who the rightful beneficiaries are and what their share of the estate will be. The other part is paying off any debts of the estate. So you may think that you are going to inherit a property, but the estate may have so much debt that you're actually not going to inherit it at all.
Right.
Yes.
I've seen that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into a probate procedure, and it's not always smooth. One way, if you are looking to not have that happen to your family, exactly, is to set up a trust. And this is especially important when you're dealing with real estate. Other accounts may have other options in order to pass those accounts along when you pass away so that they can avoid probate. But real estate, it's a stickler. You pretty much need to put that property into a trust so that you can pass it on to your heirs, to your beneficiaries, and avoid the probate process.
And that's what you really want to do. It costs the estate a lot more money to go through probate.
Absolutely. Probate fees are going to be set by California law. And that California law is statutory, meaning pretty much every attorney's office will charge the statutory rate, and it's a percentage of the fair market value of the estate. So when you're dealing with a property in California, the probate fees are just going to be set by whatever that fair market value is. They actually do not take into consideration mortgages or anything like that. On average, it's about 5% of the fair market value. So if you're looking at $1 million property, you have about $50,000 worth of probate fees to get that property through probate.
And you could owe $950,000 on it, so
Yep.
the $50,000, I mean, it's a wash, right?
Absolutely.
There's no money for the heirs if you don't put it in a
trust. Yes. So putting it into a trust is key. Our office is always able to help anybody that purchases a new property make sure that it's titled correctly into the name of the trust. And it's actually a fairly simple process if you already have a trust in place to title it correctly, and we're happy to do that. And
yes. The other thing is, if you refinance, you always have to take your property out of the trust in order to get a new loan. However, a lot of people forget to put it back in the trust. I think that's what happened with Prince, right? He had all those multi-million-dollar homes and he refinanced and took everything out of the trust, but I think they got around it. If you have good title companies, we do, you can, the intent was to keep it in the trust. They only took it out of the trust in order to refi it. But it's better just to put it back in the trust.
Absolutely. And depending on how your trust is drafted, which just like you said, you have good titling companies, good drafting is really key when it comes to properties that might be accidentally taken out of a trust. And the reason for that is because if you can prove that it was the intent for those properties to be in the trust, then you do not have to go for a full probate of those properties. We can do something else that's much cheaper and much quicker. But that does depend on the drafting of the trust and whether or not it can prove that intent.
Yes.
So, yes.
Really good.
Yes.
So that's the reason I wanted to talk about probate first, so you could see all the intricacies and the costs and everything involved in a probate, and where that would probably entice somebody into actually just putting their properties all in trust. And
absolutely. And if anyone is interested in having more information about trusts and the pros and cons and everything of that nature, we do offer wine and wills, and any of your viewers are welcome to join. It's a relaxed setting. Our next one's coming up on January 19th.
well, we'll put that on the show right out here. I think I'll come. What kind of wine? No, I'm kidding.
Yes, have a glass of wine and just listen to trust law and get some questions answered as well, because we do have a question and answer.
So do you trust wine?
Yeah.
Okay, just kidding. Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad you came on. I think that this is really valuable information. A lot of people know it, but they forget it.
Yeah.
And it's really very, very important for estates. So thank you, Erin.
Yes,
thank you so much for
absolutely.
coming on board.
Thank you, Leanne.
And cheers.
Cheers.
Clink.